On the outer edge of the Karis trade ring, there was a station no one visited unless they had no other choice. Station Halcyon 9 was old, scarred, and forgotten, its metal ribs exposed in places where micrometeor impacts had torn through decades ago. It was a place for refueling, repairs, and people who didn't fit anywhere else. That was where Joran Hale met her. She stood behind the counter of a dimly lit customs office, half hidden by shadows. At first glance, Joran barely registered her as female. Her species, Varelian, was known across the sector but rarely seen. They were tall, asymmetrical, with layered facial ridges and skin that reflected light in dull, shifting hues. To most species they were unsettling. To her own people she was worse. Joran noticed the way she kept her head down, shoulders curved inward, as if trying to fold herself smaller than her already imposing height. One side of her face bore a jagged ridge that curved too sharply, breaking the symmetry prized among Varelians. Her name badge read, Salith. She didn't look up when Joran approached. "Docking clearance for Bay 17, he said casually, sliding his ident chip across the counter. She scanned it quickly, her movements efficient but tense. Her voice, when she spoke, was quiet and flat. "Clearance approved. Duration 48 standard hours." Joran smiled. "Thanks." She didn't respond. But when he turned to leave, he noticed something that made him pause. A faint tremor passed through her hands as she stacked the data slates. Not fear, something deeper. Something learned. He glanced back. "You okay?" Salith stiffened. "I am functional," she replied immediately. "Too quickly." Joran hesitated, then nodded and left. But the image stuck with him. An alien woman trying desperately to disappear in plain sight. Over the next 2 days, Joran found himself returning to the customs office more often than necessary, filing unnecessary reports, asking redundant questions. Salith answered every time with perfect professionalism, never once meeting his eyes. On the third visit he noticed the bruise. A dark, iridescent mark along her upper arm, fresh. Joran frowned. "That looks like it hurt." Her posture locked. "It is irrelevant," she said. "Doesn't look irrelevant." She flinched at that. Actually flinched. "I said it is irrelevant," she repeated, her voice strained now. Joran raised his hand slightly. "Hey, I'm not here to cause trouble." Silence stretched between them. Finally she spoke. "Humans are strange." He blinked. Thanks. "You observe what you are not meant to," she continued. "You notice what others ignore." Joran leaned against the counter. Maybe because others don't want to see. That earned him her first real look. Her eyes were large, multifaceted, reflecting the station lights in fractured patterns. He saw hesitation there. And something else. Later that cycle, Halcyon 9 went into partial lockdown. A freighter crew from a high-status species, Drakari, had docked. They were powerful, influential, and cruel. Joran recognized them immediately. Everyone did. Salith tried to make herself invisible as they entered the station, their laughter echoing through the corridors. One of them noticed her. "Well, look at this," the Drakari male sneered. "They let that work customs now." His companions laughed. Salith said nothing. She never did. Another stepped closer, tilting his head. "Is that a facial deformity? Or did your species always look wrong?" Joran felt his jaw tighten. "Hey," he said, stepping forward. "Clearance is done. Move along." The Drakari turned slowly. "And you are?" "Human," Joran replied evenly. That only amused them more. "A human defending an ugly Varelian." One laughed. How charitable. Seilith's hands clenched so tightly her claws dug into her palms. Don't, she whispered. Please. The word wasn't meant for Joran. It was meant for herself. The Drakari left eventually, bored once they'd inflicted enough damage with words alone. But Seilith remained frozen, staring at the counter as if the universe had narrowed to that single surface. Joran waited until the corridor was empty. You don't deserve that, he said quietly. She shook her head. You do not understand. Then help me. She laughed once, short and bitter. I am defective. By Varelian standards, my facial symmetry is unacceptable. I was removed, reassigned. This station is where failures are sent. Joran studied her face again. The ridges were uneven, yes. But there was a strange elegance to the way they curved, catching light differently at every angle. Her eyes were expressive, deep, alive. You know, he said slowly, where I come from, differences aren't always bad. She didn't respond. He took a breath. I think you're beautiful. The word landed like a physical force. Seilith froze. Her breath caught. Her pupils dilated. Her entire body locked as if struck by an invisible wave. You should not say that, she whispered. Why? Because it is untrue. Joran shook his head. No. It's just unfamiliar. She didn't speak again that night. But she didn't leave either. They sat together in silence in the dim customs office, the hum of the station filling the space between them. Finally she asked, Why would you lie to me? I'm not. Her voice trembled. All my life, I have been told I am unpleasant to observe, that my presence causes discomfort, that my face is wrong. Joran leaned forward slightly. And all my life, I've learned that beauty isn't a checklist. Impact, presence, the way someone exists in the world. She looked at him, really looked at him. And you see that in me? Yes. Her shoulders sagged, as if a weight she'd carried for decades finally shifted. Just a little. No one had ever said that to her. The next day, the Drakari returned. This time they didn't stop at words. One shoved Seilith hard enough to send her crashing into the console. Another laughed as she struggled to rise. Joran didn't think. He acted. He put himself between them, fists clenched, heart pounding. Humans were weaker than Drakari in raw strength, but humans endured. Security footage would later show something the station had never recorded before. A human taking hit after hit, refusing to go down, fueled by something raw and unstoppable. By the time security arrived, the Drakari were bleeding and furious. But they left, because humans didn't know when to stop. In the aftermath, Seilith knelt beside Joran as medics treated his injuries. Why? She asked, voice shaking. Why would you do that for me? He smiled weakly. Because you matter. Something inside her broke open then. Not painfully, warmly. For the first time in her life, she didn't feel like a mistake. Weeks later, Joran extended his stay on Halcyon 9. Seilith began to stand straighter. She met people's eyes. And sometimes, rarely, she smiled. One cycle, as they watched ships drift past the viewport, she spoke softly. Among my people, beauty is symmetry. Joran nodded. Among mine, it's resilience. She considered that. Then she reached for his hand. Then perhaps, she said, I am learning to see myself through human eyes. Joran squeezed her fingers. Across the stars a quiet truth spread, passed in whispers between species. Humans had a strange power. They saw worth where others saw flaws. And sometimes, that changed everything.